Hello students. So in the previous chapter we looked at the broad classification of living organism under the system that was being proposed by Whittaker in the year 1969. Students, he suggested the 5 kingdom classification that we have already discussed in our second chapter, that is Monera, Protista, Fungi, Animalia and Plantae. So in this chapter we will deal in detail with further classification within kingdom Plantae, that is popularly known as the plant kingdom. So you can see here students that we are having systems of classification. The first one we have is the artificial system of classification. Fine. Now it is basically they used morphological characters. For example, we have height, the habit, color, number, shape of leaves. Means what we can see physically, the morphological characteristics. Fine. It based mainly on vegetative characters or in the androecium structure that was given by Linnaeus. Now students, artificial systems basically gave equal weightage to vegetative and sexual characteristics. This is not acceptable. Why? Because we know that often the vegetative structures, they are more easily affected by the environment. For example, the color of something, the shape of leaves, they can be easily affected by the environment. For example, the harsh weather, weathers and conditions, climatic conditions. So this system was unacceptable. Coming on to the second system that we are having is phylogenetic classification system, students. It is most acceptable system as it is based on evolutionary relationship between the various organisms. Now this assumes that organisms belonging to the same taxa have a common ancestor. Students, coming on to the new development in taxonomy, we are having 3 different categories. The first one we have is the numerical taxonomy. Next we have is the cytotaxonomy, and the last one we have is the chemotaxonomy. So talking about the first one, it is carried out using computer and is based on all observable characteristics. In this way, each character is given equal importance and at the same time hundreds of characters can be considered. Because it is very easy, we can at the same time we can consider number of characters. Fine. Second we have is the cytotaxonomy. It is based on cytological information. For example, we have the chromosome number, their structure, their behavior. The third one we have is the chemotaxonomy. It is based on the chemical constituent of the plants. So this was all about the taxonomy. Now students, you can see here this is the plant classification, which is basically differentiated into 2 different types. So body is not differentiated into root, stem and leaves. So those plants in which the body is not differentiated into root, stems and leaves, the example is Thallophyta. The plants in which the body is differentiated into root, stems and leaves, they are basically of 2 types. The first one where the vascular tissue is absent, that is example is Bryophyta, and where the vascular tissue is present, there are further of 2 types, phanerogams and cryptogams. So talking about the cryptogams, it is Pteridophyta, fine, seedless plants. And talking about phanerogams, they are seed bearing plants. They are further of 2 types. Where the flower fruits are absent, that is gymnosperms, and where the flower fruits are present, they are angiosperms. You might have studied this classification in your class 9th. Now students, coming on to the algae. Fine. See, now algae are the chlorophyll bearing, simple, thalloid, autotrophic and largely aquatic. It means it can live in both fresh water as well as marine. So they occur in a variety of other habitat like moist stone, soils and wood. And some of them also occur in association with fungi or lichen and animals, for example on sloth bear. Students, the form and size of algae is highly variable. The size ranges from the microscopic unicellular forms like Chlamydomonas to colonial forms like volvox and to the filamentous forms like Eulothrix. So each and everything has been given to you. You can see here students. The very first we have is the unicellular motile, that is Chlamydomonas. Then unicellular non-motile is chlorella. Next we have is the colonial form, that is volvox, and filamentous unbranched form is Eulothrix and Spirogyra. Then we have filamentous branched, example is Cladophora. These examples are basically the Algae students. Fine. Then we have marine and massy plant bodies, they are kelps. Now students, talking about the reproduction in Algae, it can be vegetative reproduction, which is done by the fragmentation, where each fragments develop into a thallus. Fine. Next one we have is the asexual reproduction. So algae also reproduce by asexual reproduction by the production of different types of spores like zoospores. They are flagellated, which means they are motile and can easily move. And on germination, they give rise to new plant. Fine. And they can also reproduce sexually through fusion of two gametes. Fine. So here we'll be talking now. They can be isogamous and oogamous. So what is isogamous here? Iso means same. So if gametes are flagellated and they are similar in size, then this type of gamete is said to be isogametes. Fine. Isogamous condition. For example, Chlamydomonas. The gametes are so similar that they are very, very similar. They are almost identical. Fine. So it's very difficult to tell which one is male gamete and which one is female gametes. Now students, here in isogametes, if gametes are non-flagellated, it means they cannot move, but they are similar in size. So the example is Spirogyra. You must have studied this fragmentation in Spirogyra in your class 10 students. Talking about the anisogamous, if gametes are dissimilar in size, this means that they are not similar. Fine. Male gamete is different from the female. Where you can see the example is some species of Chlamydomonas. Next comes here is oogamous, where fusion between one large non-motile female gamete and a smaller motile male gamete. Fine. So there is a large non-motile female which cannot move, and there is a small but motile gamete, that is the male one, and the example is volvox. I hope these three are clear to each one of you. Now we have the economic importance of algae. See students, now what exactly algae का बहुत ज़्यादा importance होता है, so we'll be studying its economic importance. First point you can see here is that half of the total carbon dioxide fixation on earth is carried out by algae through photosynthesis, so which is very, very important. Primary producers of energy rich compounds which form the basis of the food cycles of all aquatic animals, and many species of porphyra, laminaria and sargassum are used as food. So students, there are some algae which are basically used as food, and we eat them also. Now certain marine brown and red algae produce large amount of hydrocolloids. The hydrocolloid, basically they are water holding substance. Example, algin, that is a brown algae, and carrageen, that is the red algae. Agar, one of the commercial products obtained from Gelidium and Gracilaria, are used to grow microbes and in preparation of ice creams and jellies. So when you might have used this agar in your ice creams or while preparing these ice creams and jellies, it is very, very important. Now students, chlorella and spirulina are unicellular algae. They are rich in protein and are used as food supplements even by space travelers. Fine. So the space traveler also use these unicellular algae. Fine, because they are very, very rich in protein. Now students, talking about their classification, algae are divided into three main classes on the basis of pigments and stored food. So the first one we have is the chlorophyceae, then we have the phaeophyceae, and the last one we have is the rhodophyceae. So one by one we'll be doing their characteristics. Before that, I'm going to show you the diagram. Fine. Let me just coming on to the diagram, students. So look here students, this one is laminaria. Fine, this one is laminaria. Next one we have is the fucus. This one is fucus. And then we have is the dictyota. Fine. The last one, this one we have is the dictyota. Fine. Then students, you can see this brown color. This is Porphyra. Okay. And this one we have is the Polysiphonia. Okay. Now students, coming on to the characteristics of chlorophyce, which is also known as green algae. So listen to these characteristics very carefully, students. They are very important. Fine. You have to be very patient. Now, patience बहुत ज़्यादा important होता है. So the first point we have is the plant body may be unicellular. Fine. It means it contains only single cell. It can be colonial. Now what is colonial here? See students, some organisms, they live in colony. Fine. And some they live in isolation. तो या तो वो कोई एक ऑर्गेनिज्म है जो एक ही अकेले ही रहना चाहता है, दैट इज सेड टू बी इन आइसोलेशन. फाइन, वी कॉल इट एज आइसोलेटेड ऑर्गेनिज्म. But chlorophyce, the green algae, they live in colonies. And they're found in fresh water and marine habitat. Now students, they are green due to the pigment chlorophyll A and B. Fine. And the chloroplast that is found in this chlorophyce, it may be discoid or plate-like structure that is found in Eulothrix. It can be cup-shaped, for example, in Chlamydomonas, and it can be spiral or ribbon-shaped that is found in Spirogyra. Pyrenoids located in the chloroplast membrane, they contain protein besides starch. Fine. And other may stored food in the form of oil droplets. So these are the structures, students, which are located in the chloroplast membrane and they contain protein. Fine. Or they may stored food in the form of oil droplets. So oil droplet basically acts like a food for them. Now they have a rigid cell wall that is made up of an inner layer of cellulose and an outer layer of pectose. Now, I have already told you this thing, students, that they can reproduce through vegetative reproduction, through like asexually, or it can be sexually. So, how vegetatively now? By fragmentation or by formation of different types of spores. Fine. How asexually, students? By flagellated zoospores produced in zoosporangia. Fine. Or bisexually, that can be, it can be like isogamous, anisogamous or oogamous that we have just discussed. And the common example of green algae are Chlamydomonas, Eulothrix, Spirogyra, Chara and Volvox. So you can see here, these are the diagrams. Fine. This first one is Volvox, students. Second one we have is the Chlamydomonas and the third one we have is Chara. Now coming on to the Phaeophyce, which is also known as brown algae and called carps or moss. Students, they are found in marine habitat and they are present in from simple branched filamentous forms, that is the ectocarpus, to profusely branched forms as represented by kelps. They possess chlorophyll A, C, carotenoids and xanthophylls. Students, food in case of brown algae is stored as complex carbohydrates which may be in the form of mannitol or laminarin. Now, cell wall made up of cellulose. Fine, students, in case of brown algae, their cell wall basically it is made up of cellulose and it has an outer covering that is gelatinous. Fine, it is basically the outer covering is made up of a gelatinous substance that is known as algin. Now their body is usually attached to the substratum. Substratum basically, students, just for the support. Fine, because they may be, they're non-motile. So they have to attach their body with the substratum, and it has a stalk, the stipe and leaf-like photosynthetic organ that is known as the frond. Fine. Now similarly, students will be discussing about their reproduction. Fine. We have discussed which kind of chlorophyll they possess, which kind of habitat they are having, their cell wall is made up of which kind of substance. Now coming on to their reproduction. So if they are reproducing vegetatively, that is done by the process that is known as fragmentation. If they are reproducing asexually, they can reproduce by biflagellate zoospores. Fine. So bi means two. They are having two flagella which helps them in movement. Fine. And have two unequal laterally attached flagella. So they are having two flagella, no doubt in this. We have already discussed they are biflagellate zoospores, but their flagella is unequal. So one will be small and another one be larger in size. Now talking about their sexual reproduction, it may be isogamous, anisogamous or oogamous. Now students, here union of gametes may take place in water or within the oogonium. Fine. And the gametes are pear-shaped and they bear two laterally attached flagella. Example is Ectocarpus, Dictyota, Laminaria, Sargassum and Fucus. These are the common brown algae. Fine. I've already shown you the picture of all these algae. Now you can see here, this one is the Fucus, this one is the Dictyota and the first one is Laminaria. I've shown you the picture with the help of a book, students, but this is the complete picture you can see here. Now the last one we have is the Rhodophyceae, which is also known as red algae. Students, predominance of the red pigment. So the red pigment that is known as R-phycoerythrin chlorophyll A, D. Fine, so they are the prominent red pigment. And if it is found close to the surface of water and also at greater depth in ocean where relatively little light penetrates. So students, this red algae can be found either on the very close to the surface, or it may found in the greater depth but where the light is very less. Fine, so light cannot penetrate onto that deeper depth. That is why it is may or also found there in the deeper depth. Cell wall, their cell wall, students, it is made up of cellulose and it is covered with agaropectin. Now the food that is being prepared, that is stored as Floridanian starch. Fine, this is a kind of starch only, students. So it is basically stored as Floridian starch, which is very similar to amylopectin and glycogen in structure. Now chloroplasts lack external endoplasmic reticulum and contain unstaked, that is stroma or the thylakoid, which is the structure within the chloroplast. Now talking about their reproduction, they can be reproduced vegetatively by fragmentation, asexually by non-motile spores and sexually by non-motile gametes. Fine, so their sexual reproduction is oogamous. And the example, students, we have is the Polysiphonia, Porphyra, Gelidium and Gracilaria. So these are the red algae, the example of you can see here. And here this one is the Porphyra, this one is the Polysiphonia. Fine. I hope this thing is clear to each one of you students. Thank you.